Thank you very much for that. The Senator's been able to join us, so I thought I would just make a very quick introduction. I think Senator Cory Booker is well known to many, if not all of you. He's served as Senator from the great state of New Jersey since the year 2013. As you probably know, the state of New Jersey serves as host to 3 nuclear power plants with 4 nuclear power reactors. The Senator serves on the Senate's committees on Commerce, State and Transportation, on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, Environment and Public Works, and Homeland Security and Government Affairs. He's the ranking member of the Senate Subcommittee on Surface Transportation, the Senate panel responsible for overseeing Amtrak and passenger rail in the U.S. And with that, let me ask you to help welcome Senator Cory Booker.
So this is the goofy part of Washington where some young upstart walks into a room with a bunch of very esteemed scientists and everybody, oh my gosh, the senator is here because he's got a degree in science, political science, and knows so much about nuclear energy. But the truth of the matter is, it's actually been something I've become, since coming to Washington, I became incredibly passionate about and have spent a lot of time now focusing on. And that's why I'm really excited about our secretary and his team and what they are doing right now. I'm grateful for him not only inviting me here, but also he'll be up in New Jersey very soon. And I may bestow upon him, depending on how many lyrics he knows to Bon Jovi songs, I will may bestow an honorary Jersey status. He has something to go for. The amount of hair he has is offensive to me. But despite that insult, I do have a deep love for him and the focus. So let's be clear. I was over in Paris, and all of this talk about the climate goals that we have, this ambitious target to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, this incredible determination to cut carbon emissions up to 70%, while at the same time producing 70% more electricity than we do today. When you see how many coal-powered plants are coming online in places like India and other developing nations, this is a sobering ambition. But for me, I come to this issue, frankly, because of the realities I see. There's a lot of issues about global warming and the challenges of the future. But when I leave Washington, like I will get on a train today, God willing, Bezrat Hashem, I will actually go to Newark, New Jersey. And I live in a poor census tract. In fact, I may live in the poorest census tract of any senator in the Senate. And I see the realities that my city has asthma rates for our children that are epidemic, about 3-4 times what they are in other communities, that air quality is a real everyday challenge that's undermining. In fact, the #1 reason why kids miss school in America, period, for an issue is asthma. And so I know what the urgencies are here in the immediate right now. I know the challenges that global warming faces to my state and the rise of sea levels, the acidification of our oceans, even the moving of our traditional fisheries, disruption of that industry. I also know, though, we can't get there unless we substantially support and even embolden the nuclear energy sector. It just doesn't work unless we focus on this sector. And so this has been a lot of what I've been focused on. I've gotten really excited at all the studying and unlearning I've been doing, and I want to point out some staff members of mine like Adam Zipkin. It's, again, another ridiculous thing about the Senate I've learned is some of the hardest working, most contributing people are the staffers on the Senate. And the people who really know Washington, I see they ignore senators and they run right to their staff members, which is often a wise thing to do. But I'm very proud of the legislation we just got out of committee yesterday, helping next generation nuclear. It's one of the things I've been able to do in the Senate, bringing sort of left and right together to focus on common sense, streamlining of regulations, and preparing what I think is an important component of our rapid transition to a low carbon future. We have to make sure that this nation is on the cutting edge of energy innovation. And in order to do that, we've got to do that in this space. And so the bill that passed the Senate would authorize the Department of Energy to establish a national nuclear innovation center that would foster a strong public-private partnership for the development and the deployment of advanced nuclear technologies. These are really all important. and a regulatory framework that is 21st century. Like it's like the FAA saying, you know, you have to make sure that somebody has goggles for if they're piloting a plane. Well, we actually have cockpits now that goggles are not useful. We need to make sure that the regulations we have for next generation folks down. But I just want to say that that's still not enough. As a guy who loves innovation and wants us to innovate in all sectors of our society, energy innovation is really important. And I'm happy to be what's being done in the nuclear sector, solar, wind. I could go through all the great innovations that are happening, but it's just not going to be enough for us to meet our urgent climate goals. And so this is what's important about this new focus on bringing new technologies online is great, but we've got to support the existing fleet. We've got to support the existing nuclear fleet. And so nuclear energy right now provides critical baseload power, currently comprising, as you all know, more than 60% of our nation's carbon-free electric generation. Most Americans don't realize that. They really don't, and I was one of them. I thought, oh, look at all this solar coming on. New Jersey's one of the biggest solar states in the nation. But nuclear is really providing, when it comes to that carbon-free baseload power, nuclear is it. And so right now in the United States, we have 5 new reactors under construction, which is the first new commercial units in 30 years. But several existing reactors have recently been shut down, and I'll say it prematurely. And many more stand at risk. The real problem is that our economy and our federal policies do not fully recognize the true value of nuclear power as we have it now. It does not recognize this strength within our energy policy. And the negative externalities, this is what I see, and how we're not valuing it, the negative externalities from fossil fuel generated electricity is not reflected in the price of energy, allowing power plants that are driving climate change and polluting the air and hurting children like those in Patterson, Passaic, Camden, Newark. They are shifting their costs. Now, nuclear energy is not doing that. And that makes me understand that we're not valuing carbon the way that we should. And so this is going to take a lot of years of work, but we must make the bold goal of passing a law that establishes an economy-wide price on carbon. I just believe that's something that we have to start having constructive conversation about doing, that allow nuclear to compete on a level playing field. In the meantime, I'm going to be battling for things in the Senate in a bipartisan fashion, which is something I really believe that there's a great bipartisan coalition. And so there's small steps that I'm very proud of that I've been working on to help support our nuclear fleet. One is that I'm going to continue to work with my colleagues, and I hope I have the Senate quickly take up and pass the legislation that we just did, that just passed out yesterday, that puts a cap on annual fees for the existing fleet, and which will provide a degree of certainty and protection for that existing fleet. It's an important step. It's a small step, but it is significant. I'm also working on legislation, and I was very upset. A lot of celebration in the omnibus that passed with tax credits, production tax credits, investment tax credits for solar and for wind. But we had been pushing from the start, and I say we again in deference to my staff. In fact, in Paris, I was pitching and fighting and pushing for it to make sure that we have a production tax credit for nuclear, for the existing fleet, so that uprates can become eligible for the PTC. Now, that would be a big help. And it would, again, be a step towards leveling the playing field, and that's something that I'm gonna push for. And I'm going to continue to push this proposal because these plants are making incredible investments, substantial investments in providing that particularly carbon-free baseload energy power. They should be given support from the federal government. If you're looking at policy, those tax credits, they create a return on investment that's significant. Not only return on investment in terms of the growth and investment and jobs and all that's related, but dear God, what is the value of cleaning up our air so our kids can breathe? This is good, sound government policy, and I'm gonna fight for it. And so, look, I don't want to take up time as a senator when there's truly wise people here, but I live with a sense of urgency, and I very purposefully stayed living where I lived. I live with a sense of urgency, and when I go back to Newark and get a chance to stand and talk with my neighbors, in fact, one of my neighbors, their classes came down this week to visit me, a bunch of school kids from Newark, and you see that the issues that many of them are wrestling with are things that they shouldn't have to wrestle with, shouldn't have to do. You know, you have kids that have moms that are single moms working full-time jobs, and when their kid gets sick with asthma, I wrote this story in the book I just published, where the mother has to work a full-time job in an IHOP trying to raise 3 boys in the projects because you don't get enough pay from minimum wage jobs to afford housing in New Jersey. So we're subsidizing this. On top of that, she doesn't make enough money, so she has to rely on food stamps. Okay, so we're subsidizing that too. And then insult to injury is her kid's got asthma because of air quality issues and is in University Hospital, which ironically is right across from the IHOP, but she can't get paid family leave to go to be with her sick child. I still remember, this may sound silly to be mentioning, but, and it's the privilege of being a middle-class kid, that I had chicken pox, and my mom is like getting ready for a business trip because she was an HR exec for IBM, and being the overly dramatic child that I was, my staff might think I was an overly dramatic adult, but I'm sitting in this oatmeal bath, my mom's getting ready to leave, and I look at her, and I say, Mom, if you leave me, I'll die. One of the greatest acts of love is she puts down her bag. She gets on the phone. She calls her office. She cancels her business trip to sit with me and my pocked body until I felt convinced that I wasn't about to die. Now, to me, that's great. That's America. Every other country, by the way, allows that situation. Every other nation that we compete with. And so you all are sitting here today talking about nuclear energy, but the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because I see the reality of what people in my community are struggling with. That all come down to basic policy decisions. And this is a policy decision to me that affects not just, frankly, areas I'm passionate about innovation and what can we do and sound public policy, but this is about the health, safety, and well-being of our nation and, surprise, surprise, of our planet. And there are people right now who are suffering as a result of our failure to see what I know so clearly, is we are not going to get there as a nation to where we need to be without nuclear power. I'll fight for the nuclear power of tomorrow, but we got to do something with the plants that we have today because it's too important a part of carbon-free energy here right now in our country. And so I just encourage you all in these conversations and this important work, and thank God for the secretary. Maybe instead of some Bon Jovi record, I'm going to give him some clippers to shave his head. Because there's got to be a bad situation with wind resistance. The man has to move around a lot. It's too much drag. If a guy who's a scientist, it's all about efficiencies and physics. I move quicker than he does. Look at this. Please know you all are doing important work. This is important work, and it's the work of America, so that everybody, poor, rich, middle class, has a shot. Our lack of urgency, our lack of action, our lack of passing sound public policy, it's holding us back from being the truth of who we are. A country that we've all sworn an oath that we would be, a nation that's got liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody.